So you've probably got mock exams coming up in the next few months. In this video, I'm going to break down for you what are the best things to do for your mock exams. If you're new here, my name's Usman and I studied engineering at University of Oxford and at the University of Birmingham, and I help hundreds of thousands of students get the top grades possible in their exams. The first point I want to make, and I'm just going to come out and say, is that the mock exams aren't the most important thing in your next year of education. Are you ultimately preparing for your final exams, whether that's GCSEs, whether that's A-level? Whilst mock exams can give you some practice, they're not the definitive answer. I personally failed in many mock exams. I was given U grades and E grades, so much so that my teacher thought I would amount to nothing. Failing mock exams does not mean it's the end of the world. You can still recover from it and you can go on to do really well. So the reason I did really well in my exams and achieved the top grades was due to the fact that I always knew what the end goal was. Never forget what your destination, what your target is, and get distracted by the journey that you're on. With that being said, how do you optimize for your final exams? One of the best ways you can prepare for your final exam is to prepare for dealing with stress. Mock exams are surprisingly a good way of dealing with stress, because what they do is they get you used to the environment of stress. Let me tell you a little story. This story is about the skill that was most practiced by American astronauts when they were racing to go to space. The training that they provided their astronauts was not some super technical training. They gave them the training of how not to panic. Because when we panic, we don't think straight. We can't make the right decisions. We lose marks on an exam, which we should have otherwise gained. Panicking really isn't an option because panic equals death in space. So how can we cope with this? So the way that the astronauts did this was they recreated their setup for a whole year. So that's from breakfast to lunch to dinner to their whole environment. They just stayed there and replicated this day in, day out. So much so that launch day was like breathing for them. This ruled out uncertainty by simply introducing all the possible variations that they would be exposed to. Some nuance to the first point that I made, which was don't worry about the end result of the mock exams. We still need to focus and try to utilize them to the best of our ability. And remember, the mock exams are there for you to practice. So practice how you will walk to the exam hall, practice what you're going to eat, practice how you're going to go to sleep, practice how you're going to study. All of these things are the whole exact point of the mock exams. It's not really the result because, as mentioned in point 1, the result doesn't really matter. There's a famous serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Point number 3, often a lot of students, when they get to their mock exams, they haven't covered the full content of their syllabus. So my aim at this point would be to focus on the topics that the school is giving for tests in the mock. And then secondly, also think about how you can ramp up the other areas which you have not been taught yet. Because remember, this mock may only be selectively testing you on particular parts. So it may not give you an accurate estimation of what your real results might be. For me, I'm always looking to work towards the final exams, and thus I will prepare for the topics my school has told me to prepare for. But at the same time, I'm also trying to understand the future topics that I have not yet covered. Okay? Not for the mock exam, but for my longer term goal. So keep that in mind. Immediate fixes. I'm going to talk about 3 overarching techniques to really help you boost yourself to the top grades as soon as possible. Number 1 is understanding. Before you can dive in and start doing a lot of practice, you have to make sure you are understanding things from first principle. So this is the opportunity for you to build that solid foundation. What I don't want you to be doing is going for the short-term goal right now and try to ace the exam without having a solid foundation in the topics that you've covered. So if you haven't yet completed the content, or if you haven't yet understood the topics, make sure you go back and learn them from first principles. Make the effective notes that you need, so you don't need to come back and spend another month or another few weeks relearning that same content again. We want to learn it once and we want to have it done permanently for your final exam. Once you've done the understanding part, then you can move on to the second phase. The second phase is all about memorization. You need to now start committing this stuff to memory. Now, there are different techniques that you can use for memorization. You can watch my videos here on how to memorize. But then once we've covered that content, because we've uploaded it into our brain, we need to be able to download it onto the paper, right? So the way you do that is stage 3. That stage 3 is all about papers. And as I've talked about many times on this channel, the best way to improve your grades is by doing papers. So provided you've done stage 1 and 2 to a good enough level, so that's understanding from first principles and then memorization of the key points, we want to start applying that to papers. Now remember, for your mock exams, your school may have given you selective topics. So you may not be able to utilize a full exam paper from the past, but you can still use the full paper because you're ultimately working towards your final exam. I've done a more detailed video on how to get the top grades over here. It's a 25-minute long video which goes through everything from A to Z. So if you're that type of student that wants to get the top grades possible, go watch this video. Some final pointers about mock exams. Often mock exams are marked by your teachers at school, and not all of them are examiners. And as we've already mentioned, a lot of the tests are selective only for a specific part of your syllabus. These mock exams can sometimes be not reflective of your real results. This is a common situation where you find that you do really well in your mock exams, and then when the real test comes, because you've got this false sense of security, because maybe an inexperienced teacher has marked it, or because maybe they have some biases that they've marked it leniently, in the real exam, you could find that your marks drop even by 2 to 3 grades in some cases. So take your mock exam results with a pinch of salt. It's more about the preparation and the setup. That's what's important. Once you watch this video that I've put up on how to get the top grades from A to Z, hopefully you'll understand the best techniques to get to the top grades. Remember, we don't want to be focusing on the short-term goal of just the mock exams. It's easy to get emotional and start panicking about your mock exams because your school has placed so much emphasis on it. The mock exams are an opportunity for you to rectify your revision technique. So make sure you truly know what are the best ways, based on scientific studies, based on what the top students do, and based on experienced mentors and coaches that you can rely on. If you guys have got questions, I'll be happy to answer each and every one of them on how to study, how to revise. Drop them down below in the comments. As we know, the end goal is to prepare for your final exams. And one of the best ways you can do that is by liking this video and subscribing so you can get more of these useful and amazing tips. Remember to love your family and your friends. See you next time.